that's a better launch.
It gives you that kick, but
A brief initial kick and 60. So,
this launches faster than its own charge port opens. This is terrifying.
Thank you to our sponsors for today's video, StarCharge, InfyPower, Eaton, and Amber. StarCharge is the largest EV charging manufacturer in the world and is also a provider of residential and commercial battery storage and microgrid solutions. And InfyPower is the largest EV charger module provider with over 3 million power modules running reliably worldwide. Their latest G2 collection features ultra-high power density and efficiency for EV charging and energy storage integration. InfyPower, innovation for your power. This video is also brought to you by Eaton. Eaton is a one-stop shop for implementing reliable and innovative EV charging infrastructure at your site. Across all applications, Eaton's EV charging infrastructure hardware and software gives you the scalability, flexibility, and intelligence you need to charge today and scale tomorrow. Learn more at eaton.com/EVCI. And Amber, providing modern protection plans for your Tesla's battery and more without the hassle of long-term contracts or upfront payments. Check out the link in the description to explore their plan options and use code SPEC5 for a 5% discount on all plans.
The awkward middle child stereotype ends now. Step aside Q4 E-Tron and Q8 E-Tron. This is the Q6 E-Tron, which is the E-Tron I think you probably should want. So we've already driven the Macan EV extensively. In fact, our very own out-of-spec Dave owns a Macan EV. He just recently picked it up. There's videos on his channel, out-of-spec Dave, road tripping it. We've done so much with that car. But we are now pursuing the journey of the Q6 E-Tron. I was actually in Germany earlier this year at kind of the unveiling of it when they first let us do a walk around, a tour and stuff. Kyle has seen some of the architecture and sat in it and messed with the software. But the Q6 E-Tron shares the PPE platform, premium platform electric, that the sister car Macan EV also has underpinning it. So you're looking at 800 volt architecture, pretty good charging curve, a whole new MMI multimedia interface for Audi. This is really setting the future of Audi. So now I have a full US spec production Q6 E-Tron in this white color, which is actually, I kind of like it. Very, very Stormtrooper vibe, if you can call it that. And you can also see the cool DRL lighting signature up front here. Very nice. It's actually not sparkly in real life. The phone just can't really understand the actual LEDs sometimes, given the frame rate of the video recording. Beautiful edge of California. This is the ocean right here. We are on Highway 1. You can see parts of the road are like dropping into the ocean. I'm planning not to drop into the ocean. Hopefully we don't pull this thing into the ocean. And I just can't get over how beautiful this is. And maybe that's why they brought us here, because this car is also beautiful, but also not that, I don't know, it's not that special looking. It is Audi. If you like Audi, I think you'll love this car. But this is touted as the future of Audi, the future of its electric lineup. The PPE is very future looking. So I'm here to find out, is this really feeling like the future? Is this really a premium experience? You can actually get the original E-Tron, the Audi E-Tron from 5 years ago, the big E-Tron as we call it, for a really good deal. That is so cheap. Like, you can find them for like $20,000, $25,000, and that's a very luxurious EV. Is this really worth spending, in this case, 75, almost 80 grand on, or should you just go get one of those and deal with slightly older technology? It is raining. We're gonna jump back in the car. We'll do some driving impressions. And we also have the SQ6 E-Tron here as well. So I'll be diving into all the differences between the two cars, and really trying to pursue and continue the Audi Q6 story. And in this case, the Audi version of PPE, because that platform is intriguing. Is it really as good as they say it is? I guess we'll find out. It's raining. Let's go. Before we get too far into this video, I have to caveat with this wild thing. A viewer, one of you guys, reached out to us and said, you've already taken delivery of your Q6 E-Tron, which is crazy because we're just now being able to film it, which is just funny how the dealerships get it sometimes before the press are even able to go film the car. But plug and charge. I mean, this is like touted as the future electric platform, this PPE with the E3, you know, end-to-end electronic architecture. But yet plug and charge is not even enabled in a lot of cars being delivered. And the PDF instructions on how to enable it is pages, and it takes like almost an hour. And if you mess anything up, you have to factory reset the car to re-engage the plug and charge procedure. It's so complicated, so convoluted, and I hope Audi actually gets that process a bit easier for the customer. And maybe the dealers was supposed to handle it, but the fact that one of you guys took delivery, did not have plug and charge set up, it was a whole fiasco. Dave's Macan EV that he took delivery of was also a whole fiasco. So it's just not, it doesn't seem like the real future software-defined car that we're so accustomed to with the likes of Rivian and Tesla and even Lucid. So still, I know legacy OEMs, they seem to be struggling a bit with the software department, but I am excited that Audi is actually taking strides. And even though plug and charge is complicated, the software in this thing actually seems pretty darn solid, and updates are available. Okay, first up with the driving section, we are in the Q6, not SQ6. That comes later. And I have Logan here.
Hello.
With Jalopnik.
Hi.
So we are going to, he's been driving this all morning, and so now I'm going to try driving it.
Did you hear the nav through your speakers?
So, yeah, the navigation comes through the headrest speakers only for the driver, which means no one else is bothered with it, which is really nice. Wipers, yep.
I was struggling with those earlier.
Yeah, so the wiper hits the A pillar.
It seems to smack it.
These are supposedly production, but we've seen some glitches, including with music, which is now working apparently, but before our coffee stop, it was not working.
CarPlay or Sirius or radio.
Yeah, nothing was playing audio. It's very interesting. But just in terms of how this actually drives, I mean, it is comfortable. It is Audi. You have this entire giant control panel on the door, the driver's door, and so I guess making sure my mirrors are correct. There's a lot of options here, but like any car, you can probably get used to it. Oh, supervision needed. Focus on the road at all times. So if I look away, it knows I'm looking away. I don't know where the camera or detecting thing is. Somewhere it knows that I looked away. But honestly, yeah, how does the Q6 drive compared to SQ6 and the power and everything? So I'm going to try out the region levels. There is, of course, 0 region, so full coasting, which I'm doing right now, which is totally fine. But even when you hit the brake, it will use region first. Audi claims there's no efficiency difference between all the levels of region or one-pedal driving. I don't know if I fully believe that, because I feel like a lot of people have shown that it is actually more efficient in a lot of ways to use coasting, but I guess we'll see, depending on the driving, what recuperation you need. Going into region level 1, or man 1, I guess. There's like manual 0 and there's manual 1. This is 0.06 Gs of deceleration, so it's just a little bit of region, which is noticeable. I mean, it's like engine braking versus coasting is how I can compare it. And then you have manual 2, which is 0.15 Gs deceleration. And I feel like a lot of people would be happy with that. And that, I think, is maybe what the Macan peaks at. The Macan EV notably has no one-pedal driving, even though it's the exact same platform. Whereas this thing does have one-pedal driving, which I will turn on now by going to B mode. Everyone who's driven an Audi knows there's a B mode. So now it's 0.25 Gs deceleration. Still not super strong, honestly.
No, and very progressive.
Yeah, it's smooth. It's super smooth. But now I'm gonna launch it. Definitely sends things a little back, but it really, like you said earlier, gradually ramps into the speed.
Yeah,
which is nice. I think most people are good with that. I really think my consensus of today is like, we're not even done with the day, but it just feels like if you love Audi, you'll love this car, and you will agree that this is probably the best Audi SUV you can buy in most cases. But it's not like insanely stand out in most ways.
How would you say it compares to Q8 E-Tron?
A good car. I think better charging, better efficiency, and a little more dynamic, I would say. Q8 E-Tron is just a bit bigger.
Massive, yeah, heavy. I mean, but I think that this is very much like just a notable but still relatively small advancements of like the electric powertrain over Q8 E-Tron.
Yeah, I agree. This really does feel like next generation, but it does also just feel like every time I go to an Audi event, it's kind of like, what is their future? Because we've been a bit confused over the last few years of, you know, currently Audi offers now 4 EV platforms, more than 4 EVs at this point, but like 4 different electric vehicle platforms, which is a bit convoluted, I think. But this seems to be the best platform, other than, you know, if E-Tron GT gets the J1.2, so the updated Taycan platform, then that's the best one. This is the Prestige model equipped with the air suspension and the passenger display and all the premiumness. And this is the one with the highest like acoustic laminated glass and the quietest cockpit. It is pretty quiet, but switching drive modes, which I can press this button and then press it again to go to different drive modes, or I can use the touchscreen at that point. Now we're in dynamic, which does stiffen the suspension and adds what we thought earlier was like tire noise, but that's actually the sound being pumped in. And it is subtle, it's quiet, like it's not annoyingly like trebly, but it is still notably fake sound.
It just sounds like road noise.
Yeah.
It's like they piped in road noise, tire noise, like low frequency tire noise.
It's not really what I would want to hear.
Yeah.
But I guess it does add some dynamic feeling to it. But I don't know. It stiffens it up. So by individual, it's what we were in, and you can of course adjust it. So we can do comfort, balanced, or dynamic for steering. I go to comfort. Air suspension with suspension control is on comfort. Sound. Ooh, so there's balanced and dynamic sound. So this is balanced sound. So it's still adding in some. And then dynamic is a bit more, but still not super annoying. So I'm cool with that. And then driver's assistance, you have comfort, balance, dynamic, and efficiency. Audi virtual cockpit layout, we have balance, dynamic, efficiency, and off-road. So
changes nothing.
it changes the little thing in the middle, barely. And I'm guessing efficiency will just really kill the throttle. And then once you get down to below 50 kilometers or 30 miles of range, it will automatically go to efficiency plus, which I think kills climate and like really gets you into maximum range mode. But I think most people would just choose comfort and be happy because you're just driving an Audi, and that's the most premium feeling. And the air suspension really is nice. It really is damped well. The throttle response is nice and smooth. I mean, everything feels good. I do think it is a pretty good driving position and really a lot of flexibility. I mean, you had it dialed in relatively, and you're 6'8".
Yep. I had plenty of room up front. There wasn't much behind me.
None behind you.
That's kind of par for the course with my size.
Was the seat all the way back?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then I moved it up quite a bit, but yeah, definitely a lot of control. So I don't know.
No massage in Q6 though.
Yeah, that's one really interesting. Like, just the layering of levels and options is strange to me, and we can break it down fully later because there's a lot to get into. But just not like, if you're getting a Q6 E-Tron, they tout it as like, you know, premium SUV, and you can get massage, but to get massage you have to go with SQ6, which that I thought was going to be the sporty one.
Yeah, it's supposed to. This is supposed to be like the most comfort-oriented version with the comfort air suspension, and then SQ6 has performance air suspension, and yet it's the one with massage.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if SQ6 compromises the comfort for the sake of sportiness, or is it okay?
This is really aggressively angled toward the driver. I didn't realize that sitting on the driver's side, but from over here, the curved screen is very curved.
Yeah, the new MMI cockpit is very driver-oriented, as they called it, and I don't know, it's almost too much. Like, it feels awkward being on that side trying to adjust your temperature.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have a long reach.
But either way, I mean, you can supposedly use the Audi virtual assistant to do that. Hey Audi, I want my temperature to be 69 degrees.
I am setting the temperature to 69 degrees Fahrenheit.
Now, if you set yours to something, it should be different, because she knows who's talking.
Yeah, hey Audi, set my temperature to 66 degrees.
I am setting the temperature to 66 degrees
Very
Fahrenheit.
quick and reactive. Love it. Something else I just realized, when you slam on the accelerator, the heads-up display gets bigger.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
It like grows along with the acceleration. So it's almost like the G-force is affecting the heads-up display, which is really fascinating.
They were saying in the presentation that like it's intended to require less refocusing of your eyes. It's supposed to like be positioned further ahead of you in your field of view, but maybe that has something to do with it. Like as you're accelerating harder, it thinks you need to know more.
And it makes everything bigger, but it makes your speedometer way bigger. So it's like if you're accelerating, it wants you to know how much you're accelerating, so you don't supersede the law. So yeah, I guess while there's like no one around us, I want to see how the body roll feels with the comfort mode. That's definitely a bit wafty. And then jumping into dynamic, just to compare, I think, I don't want to scare this Venza or this Escape. Yeah. And whoa, and then deceleration makes the speedometer tiny in the heads-up display. That's so funny.
I didn't notice that.
That's definitely a bit more planted, yeah.
Yeah.
So back to some rain, but also trying out the driver's assistance system. ADAS is a huge component to a car. You've actually done a lot of ADAS work in your career history, but trying it out right now, it's actually really pretty good. It does cross the lines sometimes, but like very naturally. Like it's only because it's like what I would have done if I was driving and there's no cars around. However, it's almost like this doesn't actually know when there's no cars around, so I have had to catch it when it was trying to drive into a trash can and like various things along the edge of the road. And when a truck was like close to the center line, it also went close to the center line because it was naturally that's what you would have done in the curve, but it's just not super confidence inspiring in some regards, but very capable on honestly most of these windy roads we've been driving on. And lane centering everywhere is so crucial. Do you hear that, Lucid and Rivian, you future thinking companies who you still cannot use lane centering on without a pre-mapped highway, which is insane to me. That's hopefully changing and could change, but I'm just glad Audi lets us do it properly. It's being at me to take over in the screen, and then it does a really crazy alarm sound. Hold on, wait for it. Wait for it. Fortunately, it's a capacitive wheel, so I can touch it lightly pretty much anywhere, but it's actually letting me, oh, there we go. Oh God, that'll wake you up. But it's actually very nice light touch because it is just fully capacitive in how it reacts to you. The heads-up display though, showing me where the car in front of me is. I mean, I can see where it is, but it's showing me that the system knows where the car in front of me is and also how the road curves is very nice. So really a huge fan of this heads-up display. I mean, what do you think? Are you a heads-up display enthusiast?
I am, totally. That said, I don't necessarily need like the 3D AR thing, but I love at least being able to see my speedo because I'm really tall. Like that way I don't have to look down at the screen, you know, I just got it in my line of sight. And yeah, it's a solid one, and it's not overbearing. I feel like the Mercedes one lately has been a little much.
Yeah.
But this one's solid, and Porsche too, even in the Macan EV.
Yeah.
It was a large portion of your field of view is taken up by the projections, but here it's a little bit more tame and reasonable.
It's quite big. I mean, it's 1,152 wide by, what is that, 7?
Yeah, something like that.
56 tall or something, or 576 tall. So it's a 2:1 ratio as far as like it's a perfect rectangle essentially. But the specs are really quite impressive. It does seem to be OLED. I mean, maybe we can tell later in the drive today, once we get to the SQ6 to see how it looks at night. But my pet peeve is when a heads-up display is not OLED and therefore has like not true black. So you're looking at like a square of almost like really, really, really dark gray with white on it, which is just super ugly to me. This one is precise, perfect contrast, OLED appearingly, and also 13,500 nits brightness. So you should be able to see it in the absolute brightest of days. Of course, with today, it's, you know, overcast completely and raining. So of course it's still beautiful looking. Anything other notable things? We've been playing with drive modes a bit more. Oh, and by the way, heated and cooled seats together is the best thing ever. But I wish there was massage in this car. But at least we'll have
77
that.
grand.
Right, at least we'll have that in the SQ6. Like with the Macan, you can get like basically a base Macan, but then option massage seats.
Yeah.
Cool. But with this, drive modes, notably playing with the individual drive mode, which I feel like a lot of people would like to have and use, there is no throttle control. So you have steering and you can adjust the air suspension. That's very normal. But typically there's also a section for how fast do you want the car to, I mean, do you want like a sport mode or slower comfort mode or efficiency mode? I would love to be able to attach that to my preferred individual settings. Like what if I want to have the most efficient driving pedal mapping while also having a bit more dynamic? I don't know why you would do that. I'm actually more the opposite. I always prefer a bit more of a comfortable steering rack, comfortable suspension, but then stronger throttle response. There's no way to do that here, which is really annoying because that means if you do want the fast throttle control, you're stuck with dynamic mode, which means you're stuck with the stiff suspension and you're also stuck with the fake noise being pumped in, which I don't really love. It's not the worst, it's not the most offensive. Like
yeah, it just again sounds like you're piping in tire noise for no reason. It doesn't add to the experience in any way, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that being said, I'm still glad they have an individual mode, but it's not individual enough. But whatever, I'll just keep it on individual because individual is a bit better than nothing at all. But having the driver assistance, now we're in a really curvy section. Let's see how well it can. Wow, it's doing it just fine. Whoa, nope.
Never mind.
So right as I said
up.
that, it gave up. It decided that curve was too much for it. Let's try this curve. It's really fun to put these systems like to their real testing the limits. And it's slowing down, probably because of the car in front of us. And yeah, it's just gonna give up there. Didn't chime us that time. It just totally gave up. But it got back on the system by itself even after I took over, that's actually really cool. So I'm excited to see how this does in our hogback driver assistance challenge in the mountains on I-70. The Macan notably did very, very well. So be curious to see how this fares as well. Oh, that's a better launch.
It gives you that kick, but
A brief initial kick and 60. So Q6. I mean, enough power for most people.
it's supposed to be 4.9 seconds to 60 with 456 horsepower in that launch.
Yeah, so
did
launch.
it say launch?
No, there's no visual representation of it launching, but it does launch decently hard. But I also think you can just smack the throttle and it'll launch pretty much as hard, but maybe minus the 20 horsepower. Even so, with launch mode, Q6, 4.9 seconds, 0 to 60. This launches faster than its own charge port opens.
The charge port just takes a year and a half to open. It's ridiculous.
I guess the SQ6 is lowering. Let's try launch control.
Launch program activated. Ay. There's
And
a
a
deer!
deer! Better move, buddy!
There's a cute little deer.
Okay, so that actually felt faster than the charge port opening speed.
Significantly.
If you ask me.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a little bit of flooding here, maybe. Ooh. Wow. Okay, testing forwarding capabilities. Good.
SUV ting.
Yeah. So, SQ6. So, presumably sports Q6. And how sporty is it? Well, definitely a bit more over the Q6, but I don't feel like it's like dramatic. I mean, it is more power. Everything's on paper boosted a bit, and it is fun, but it doesn't feel like it's the right thing for this type of car.
It feels faster in the passenger seat. When you're behind the wheel, it doesn't feel as compelling. But
Right. So it kind of reminds me of like, you know, if you were to buy like an EV9 and add the boost option, which is like over-the-air update thing, Or yeah, like what we've seen with Tesla, where you can buy a boost. Like, it feels like that amount of boost. And it is cool, it's compelling, it's definitely sporty, but I do feel like it is very stiff. I'm gonna turn traction control back on because rain. And I'm actually gonna go back into comfort now. So, dynamic mode, obviously very dynamic, but you feel every little undulation of the road. These big 21-inch wheels don't help. That's just less rubber, less sidewall, less things to absorb every little impact. And that, I think, is like, I mean, it's a compromise for obvious reasons. Like, those are the most performance-oriented wheel and tire setup, but then again, you're losing the sidewall that is comfort aiding. Whereas we have this air suspension that is also tuned more for sport. I don't know all the details and the difference of tuning, but it does feel like it's just not quite as smooth as the Q6 Quattro with its air suspension option.
Yeah, it's definitely a little jiggly. You know?
Yeah, like comfort mode to comfort mode. Like, I'm trying to compare apples to apples with these two cars and figure out exactly how different they are. And like I was assuming, I feel like you compromise a bit more of the comfort in quote unquote, well, that usually equates to luxury in some ways. These trees are gorgeous, oh my gosh. You lose some of the luxurious comfort in response to the sportiness of the stiffer, more precise ride. And I do feel like the steering feel is also a little bit better.
It is, right?
But not, I mean, it's still kind of numb.
I think it's maybe like a quicker ratio, perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's nicer.
But sure. Trying to figure out exactly what the car is doing, it's definitely, I do feel a bit more of the road, like of what the front tires are doing. And that is in part with just how the steering rack has been a little bit redefined in this car. They no longer have rubber bushings. So it is like directly mounted to the chassis. And so that does aid in steering feel a little bit. And that's welcome. Whatever steering feel you can give us, I appreciate it. And speaking of steering wheel, you have this like squircle-ish flat bottom and top to just remind you that this is indeed very sporty. Even these seats have kind of suede inserts, it seems. But you don't have the ventilation, I guess, in these seats, which I think there is an option with ventilation in the SQ6. And the SQ6 is the only way to get massage, which is kind of strange. Just the whole packaging levels of the Q6 versus SQ6, and then the various, premium plus, prestige, which I'll get into, just feels a little bit convoluted and a little bit, I just kind of sit a bit confused, wondering like, if choosing between sport versus luxury, and to go full luxury, which you would think is massage seats, means you have to go full sport, and those feel like dichotomies, and I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree entirely. It's a strange decision to put such a luxurious feature on the sporty model that does objectively compromise the luxurious ride.
Yeah, so I would have rather had massage seats in the Q6 Quattro and have, sure, save it for the prestige trim, call it a day. But I guess, I don't know what the buyer wanted. They seem to be justifying all the decisions because of what their customers said. So in theory, that could be what the Audi customers are wanting. But just driving around here in comfort, it is fine if you're on a genuinely smooth road. But I will say these roads out here have a lot of cracks, little potholes, undulations.
Some big potholes.
Big potholes. Try not to blow any tires. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. But so you really do feel a lot more of everything happening, and we are in comfort mode. So it's interesting. Like, I think, well, and also the massage seats, not impressive. Like, the massage function itself is so subtle. I keep forgetting that it turns itself off because I just didn't notice it to begin with. And I'm on full intensity, by the way. There's 3 different massage programs: relax, balance, and stretch. I got the navigation in my ear again. But neither of the massage profiles are very strong, especially after experiencing i7 and Lucid and EQS recently, this is by far the weakest. Almost maybe not even worth having. Like, I wouldn't make my buying decision around these massage seats. Whereas after road tripping the Lucid so much, those massage seats were like a saving grace for a really long road trip. It actually does feel just like a SQ5, just electric, so obviously the instant torque, all the typical EV things, but you're really not getting much more as far as storage capacity, or like you're not getting crazy improvements other than, you know, this MMI really nice display, OLED displays, heads-up display, everything, passenger screen. But
Tech is cool.
But then again, the updated Q5 on the PPC platform is getting all the same tech for most part. So I guess it is kind of like pick your flavor. Do you want combustion or electric? Which doesn't really, to me, tell me that they're trying to pull that many electric people into it. They tried to portray this, you know, they kind of did a little presentation last night trying to say, like, they're trying to attract new EV, or they're trying to bring new people to Audi who might be intrigued by this PPE platform because it's so forward-thinking and good. And I could see that, but it's also, they didn't do anything revolutionary per se. A lot of nice improvements. The actual voice assistant is pretty impressive so far. A little glitchy here and there with like whether we had service or not, even though it touts like offline capabilities, but I don't know what all those offline capabilities are. I guess what I keep coming back to is like not having lane centering as standard feels like an old school way of thinking. Not having some of the convenience features like heated rear seats, heated steering wheel, like those feel like such basic things now that Tesla's putting them in the base Model 3. Like, that does baffle me a bit that you have a car already way more expensive than Tesla. Like, not to keep using Tesla as a benchmark, but in a lot of ways they now are, whether we like it or not. And so I am surprised at how many things a luxury brand does not give you as standard. So there's a lot of information to get into with the Q6 family, I guess you could say, because, well, there's rear-wheel drive, and then there's Q6 E-Tron, and then there's SQ6 E-Tron, and more to follow, apparently. So the PPE platform is alive and well with Audi, and they're all launching at the same time, although there's no rear-wheel drive variants here, which is a bummer, because I'd really love to try that one out, even though I think no one's going to buy it. So let's talk some stats. I've already filmed a lot of this at the original kind of unveil that I was at in Germany, but now we have a bit more information, so I'm just going to lay it all out here anyways, all for the sake of convenience for you guys. 94.4 kilowatt hour usable battery. It's 100 kilowatt hour gross, so that's easy to remember, but 94.4 is usable. That is also the same across all variants, although there are CATL cells, NMC chemistry 811 ratio, and the rear-wheel drive, although it's the same battery capacity, it's actually a Samsung cell instead of CATL, and for that reason apparently is why it has a lower peak charging rate. So all the Q6 and the SQ6, the Q6 Quattro and SQ6 have a peak charging rate of 270 kilowatts. The rear-wheel drive one peaks at 260. Still honestly great, and the charging curve should be about the same from what they can tell, but they were not able to confirm that at this point yet. But yeah, peak charging rate 270 for this car and most of the Q6s, and 10 to 80% in 21 minutes, which is really quite good. The rear-wheel drive one, 22 minutes, so I guess you're sacrificing a minute by having that Samsung pack. I'm really curious to see if our real-world testing can tell if it's actually about the same, because they're boasting it to be the same, but we've seen with various car suppliers, I mean, for example, the new Highland Model 3, depending on if you have the LG or Panasonic pack, really varies on your charging performance. So will we see that same scenario here? Not sure yet. We don't have our hands on a Q6 rear-wheel drive. And we technically have our hands on an SQ6 and a Q6 Quattro right now, but we don't have any way to charge them. There's no charging stops along the routes that they're making us drive, so we will try that back in the office in Fort Collins. What else? The battery weighs 570 kilograms, so that's a lot of weight, but it is less weight than the original big E-Tron battery while also being more, battery, more capacity and more energy dense. So they are making progress is really what they're trying to say with that. But yeah, 12 modules total. In Europe, they'll actually have a 10 module smaller battery pack following. I don't think it's out yet, but here, honestly, in the US, just all one battery, easy to remember. The actual battery voltage is the same as the Macan, 662 nominal. It peaks at around 700, I think maybe even 750. So it does have a pretty, it's an 800 volt architecture, but that doesn't mean 800 volts. So you may be reading a lot of articles. Even if you ask Google, the AI summary just tells you it's an 800 volt battery, but it's really 800 volt architecture, which is different from 800 volt actual voltage. So 662, still great nominal voltage. It's not like the somewhat sleaziness, I hate to call it sleazy necessarily, but Kia Hyundai boasts 800 volt, but some of their batteries are nominally like in the 500s, which is not much higher than 400. Even then, this pack, when it's plugged into certain chargers that aren't necessarily optimized for 800 volt, can actually do a split pack function, which will allow it to charge in parallel at 400 volt, 135 kilowatts. So still pretty decent. But the charging curve itself, I can overlay on the screen hopefully. 250 kilowatts is what it's still doing at 40%. That's really quite good. Tesla, boasts 250 kilowatts as its peak, but that really tapers quite quickly. I'm glad to see this holding that through 40%. And even at 80%, it's still doing 150 kilowatts. So really quite impressive charging, if you ask me. Regen. This has various levels of regen and notably one pedal driving, which we'll get into, but it gets up to a 220 kilowatts of regen, so not crazy high. Like a lot of cars we've seen higher regen numbers than their actual peak charging. This is actually not that way. It peaks at 220 kilowatts, which is less than the Macan, its sister car, which peaks at 240. The rear-wheel drive does not do 220, it actually gets less than that. So the rear-wheel drive, they haven't been able to tell me. It's almost like no one really knows much about the rear-wheel drive car here. You haven't heard much, right?
Not at all.
So,
and when we ask, they get a little annoyed.
Like, yeah, they're like, no, the Q6 Quattro. So I guess that's kind of what we're focused on is Q6 Quattro and SQ6. So I'm still telling you guys what rear-wheel drive stats I can find out, but for the moment, I guess we're kind of focused on Q6 Quattro. By the way, these roads are just
so
stunning.
Incredible, like no words.
I'm trying to read off nerdy facts and figures and not just...
I'm like welling up with tears. Beauty, like...
You just love hearing me read facts and figures, right? Onboard charging, by the way, 40 amps at launch, which is still an honorable 9.6 kilowatts. Later on, 19.2 kilowatts, 80 amp onboard charger. I'm sure that'll be an option. And then everyone's burning question, NACS. What did they say about NACS?
They said that there will be an adapter allegedly in the future. They have not determined whether it will cost money or not, and they also don't know when it will arrive. They don't know when they will come from factory with NACS chargers. So it's pretty much...
We don't know.
Yeah.
This car is shipping with CCS as it launches, which is fine. A lot of people will be charging these at home. It has the convenience of 2 charging ports, which most cars don't have. Macan and Taycan do, and so that's clearly a Porsche developed thing that the PPE platform is Audi's reaping the benefits of a Porsche developed thing, I guess, if you ask me. And I think it's great. I love having charge port on both sides. I've been in so many situations where I just happen to park inconveniently, or the parking spot is not great, and that really helps. And usually it's a level 2 charger that benefits from that. DC fast charging is only on one side, the driver's rear side, which is the correct side for when supercharger access is available. I don't know if it will do well with superchargers. The superchargers, version 3 ones anyways, do struggle with a lot of these high voltage cars. So we'll find out, but not on this drive, unfortunately. As far as the specs, I'm sorry guys, I would normally do this outside the car, but it is literally raining, so you're stuck with Logan driving, me talking. 187.8 inches long, so about 188 76 inches wide, actually about 84 inches wide with mirrors, I guess, or 86, something like that, and 65 inches high. I've actually seen variances of these numbers even from Audi themselves, so I didn't bring a tape measure to necessarily measure. It could even be based on the trim of the car, and I don't know. Either way, and then 114-inch wheelbase. I just don't feel like the packaging of this car is super great. It's comfortable place. I mean, it feels like an Audi. This is slated as the electric Q5, essentially, is where they started this project on, as that foundation. But it's still, wow, even more rain now. That's why we're inside. It's still just not the most efficient packaging. I mean, after reviewing the Lucid Gravity last week, it is crazy how good Lucid is with packaging. Here, it's fine, but it's not class leading whatsoever.
It's that compromise that you get when automakers aren't willing to start from a fresh sheet, you know?
Right. They really are locked into their Audi design language, and they tried to make it aggressive looking and stuff. And I think it looks fine, but it doesn't look like really super interesting. It just looks like an Audi SUV. Not really a forward-thinking Audi SUV, if you ask me, although the lighting signature stuff does help. I do think that's really cool, and we'll try to find a dry place to show you that. But it's, I don't know, just not impressive rear seat and room, which normally an EV would allow you to do that. Usually with EVs, especially in Lucid's case, you can move the front occupants further forward because there's no engine up there to, you have to worry about packaging around, and they just didn't do that with this. So, storage-wise, also not exactly class-leading. Not bad either. 30 cubic feet behind the second row, 60 cubic feet with the seats down. Those are both slightly bigger than Macan numbers, but still not quite Model Y numbers, for example. It is more than iX though, and it's the same storage space as Polestar 4. The frunk, yeah, small. I've heard a variety of 61 to 69 liters. I think it's actually closer to 61 because they said only 2.15 cubic feet in the briefing this morning, which is noticeably smaller than the 2.9 cubic feet of Macan EV. And I don't actually think Audi Q6 rear-wheel drive gets any more room in the front, although it'd be interesting if they did, and we just haven't really heard that. That would be a very Kia / Hyundai strategy, where the front-wheel drive, or the vehicles with front motors, actually impede on the trunk room. And it is, of course, bisected, which we've seen before. It's a way to circumvent not having the emergency escape thing for, I guess, children who might find their way into the front. I don't really know. But there it is. That's your frunk, which is nice to see in Audi, but honestly, not very class leading. And then we have, I guess, wheel sizes, which will kind of tie into discussing the trims. So, what's hilarious to me, Logan, is if you order an Audi Q6 Premium Ultra, that is the base model.
Yeah, the Premium Ultra base.
Talk about nomenclature. So, Premium is the base trim, and then with the Ultra package, that gives you the 18-inch wheels, so the smallest wheels, which are, it's called Ultra, I guess, because it's ultra efficient. That's the way to get 321 miles EPA range, which is pretty good. Fine. Range, I guess. Fine, yeah. You'd be expecting, I guess, around 3.4.
Yeah, for a big Ultra.
3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, something like that. Can't wait to try that, but like, from what we could tell, you're not getting much worse with just a Q6 Quattro. And you may as well spend the extra $2,000 to get the Q6 Quattro if you're asking me. I really don't think the rear-wheel drive will sell much. But you get 19s or 20s as standard. You can option 21s, I think only on the SQ6. And then all the all-season tires on all these trims are run flats, which I don't think are great, but that's what the customer said they wanted. The 21-inch actually have a more sport-oriented wheel, or tire, I guess. Well, and wheel. Towing capacity, 4,400 pounds. Not bad, but not amazing, but I guess good enough for a lot of people. So no complaints there. Front motor, asynchronous. Rear motor, permanent magnet. The actual Q6 base price, $63,800. You can spec it up to $70,000, a rear-wheel drive Q6. I don't really know why. Again, I think you should just go for the Q6 Quattro for just a little bit more money. But the base model, the rear-wheel drive, if you care, about 300 horsepower, 322 with launch control. Don't know the torque number, they didn't tell us. So that's about 225 to 240 kilowatts. 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. So pretty slow. Not EV9 rear-wheel drive slow, but pretty slow.
I love that we exist in a time where 6.3 seconds to 60 is slow.
I know, because it's probably actually okay.
Yeah, but for an EV, definitely.
For an EV,
it is.
in this world of like...
And an expensive one, a premium Audi
right.
EV.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. But jumping up to the Q6 Quattro, that's where you get 422 horsepower or 456 with launch control. So that's 315 kilowatts, 340 with launch control. 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. At that point, so to get a car that accelerates faster than the charge port, you have to go for the Quattro. Because the charge port is so slow to open. That's hilarious. And that gets 307 miles of range up to. I mean, if you option the bigger wheels, you're going to probably lose out on that range a little bit. We know that because SQ6 then starts at 73 grand. So it's like a $7,000 upcharge to get SQ6, or nearly that. That's when you get close to 500 horsepower, over 500 with launch control. So 380 kilowatt peak. And that brings your 0 to 60 down to 4.1 seconds. But then you only get 275 miles of range. Okay, we've been driving for a little bit longer now, and actually, yeah, the 84 elements of this LED strip in front of us are actually kind of cool, kind of useful. In one part, showing navigation instructions on left and right. That's kind of cool. But also, I guess, emergency situation, like if it detects something with cross traffic, it flashes. It doesn't do the... Or does it?
On the door it does. Look at the
door.
door.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Mercedes thing. When you adjust the temperature, it changes the color on your door or the side that the temperature was adjusted on to blue or red, depending on whether you made it warmer or cooler. So that's cool. Also, so we drove around in a Q6 for a while. We were keeping track of efficiency because we're nerds. And that was getting around 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is fairly expected. That would get you that about 300 miles range if you do the math. This SQ6, we're averaging 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour, way less. We've done exactly 100 miles at this moment, and we've used almost half the battery, not quite. We went from 95 to 51. So with that math, you're looking at a little over 200 miles on a full charge. Granted, some of the stuff we were doing was a bit sporty, but also
a little aggressive.
Also, a lot of like lesser speed cruising. We haven't done any high speed driving. It's a lot of lower speed stuff.
Lots of use of regen.
Yeah, a lot of bit of regen. So it's been interesting. But on the note of regen, it's not strong enough to my liking. But I do like regen levels, and I like that they're easily adjustable. Actually, when a lot of people drive, like I like having people drive my Model 3 just to see what they think of it. And the most common complaint of people who haven't driven many EVs is that the regen's too strong, and they wish there were different levels to it. And I do agree. I like having the option. But it is interesting that the paddle situations, the paddles are how you adjust regen. The plus in my head would mean more regen, but it actually means
more speed,
more coastability. Yeah, more speed. So you hit plus a few times and then you go to full coasting, and then you go minus a few times and that gives you more regen, brings you down to a creep like this, but not full stop. And it's annoying. Unlike Kia and Hyundai, you can't keep going to like quote unquote I-pedal mode, as they call it. You have to go down to the, what do you call it? The domino shifter?
Yeah.
And that's what brings you to full one pedal driving. I actually wish you could access that. And now that I'm in one pedal driving, I can no longer use the paddles. I do wish you could, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but...
Yeah, no, you should be able to adjust all the way down to the full one pedal drive mode using the same function, rather than having to switch from using the paddles to go from mild to medium to moderate.
Yeah.
And then having to reach down to use your shifter situation, which I call a domino because it's a little stupid rectangle thing that looks like a domino.
Yeah.
To give you the full one pedal drive.
Yeah.
It's just an extra unnecessary step that you shouldn't have to do.
Yeah. But all that to say, I do like the levels of one pedal driving, and as Audi says, it really shouldn't affect your efficiency, because when I do have, in this case, full coasting, and then I hit the brakes, it's using as much regen as possible before friction brakes kick in. And I will say the brake blending is actually fantastic. My foot can't honestly tell when it's cutting from regen to friction brakes. Speaking of friction brakes, though, on this SQ6, we do have the, 6-piston calipers?
Yep.
So they did not under-brake this thing, which is nice and refreshing, especially in the world where, notably Tesla has been a bit under-braked in many cases. And then the normal Q6 Quattro has 4-piston brakes. Not quite as beefy as these, but still plenty, I think, for most people. And just having that regen capability up to 220 kilowatts is very helpful. Hopefully we can figure out what the rear-wheel drive regen capability is. And again, I'd love to try that. But it makes sense that it can't regen as hard because it is only one motor doing the regen versus two. Beyond that, we also have this heads-up display, which, now that it's getting darker, is just so beautiful and nice looking. But the augmented reality portion of it, I actually think is overrated. It's just not that useful. It is cool when you're using adaptive cruise control and it's like detecting the car in front of you and like where it is. And it's nice that I can see that the car can see where it is. But the navigation, having the arrow jump out in front of you, that has been anything but useful so far. It just hasn't been, it comes up right now and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should go there. But no, it's just floating there, still pointing left, but not quite there yet. Now that we're approaching our turn, what it should do, I think, is jump out ahead, and then it should, quote unquote, pull us into the turn. And yeah, that's kind of what it did, but then it went into the wrong lane. And now it's doing the 3 things to show that we are turning left. And then the speed limit signs have been way off. I don't know if you noticed that when you were driving, but whatever it's detecting a speed limit and trying to portray it on the road in front of you, that's been extremely gimmicky. So I appreciate the effort, but I actually think it's more distracting and more confusing. And even though this does some things Lucid doesn't, such as lane centering everywhere, come on Lucid, Lucid's augmented reality heads-up display and the gravity that they debuted, and the gravity is phenomenal and just the new benchmark for heads-up displays. So I don't know what it would take to further refine this, but hey, this is a quote-unquote E3 car, end-to-end electronic, the E-cubed, whatever they're calling it. Their state-of-the-art electronic infrastructure, so over-the-air updates should be able to address everything. Before we lose all daylight, I do want to show you guys a bit more of the actual software itself and just everything in here. Here's the actual domino shifter we were talking about. It does look like just a little domino, even feels like one, same type of material. And there's a start-stop button, although it seems like the car also just starts and stops by itself, so I guess you sort of have both. And just a lot of piano black everywhere, including on the steering wheel, including this giant touchpad on the door, which gives you a ton of things that I feel like a lot of other cars opt to put up here. I actually don't mind it here. It's easily viewable, easily accessible. And then all the window switches, the trunk release down there. Well, what's interesting is the doors, because of this, are different. So that door actually has a grab handle, whereas this one has this huge grabbable thing, and then nothing up here, because on that side, that's where lock unlock is. This is just a blank slit switch thing, which is hilarious. Usually that indicates you're missing an option, but this is basically a maxed out Audi SQ6. You have the gorgeous displays. So this is I think 11.9 inch driver's display, 14.5 inch center display, and then the huge heads-up display, as you can see there. Absolutely gorgeous. These are all OLED. That is actually LCD, not OLED, but still high quality LCD. And it's just so interesting that when you're in drive over here, they have some dynamic privacy effect that actually hides what the screen is showing. So as a driver, therefore, I'm not distracted by whatever you might be watching on that screen as a passenger.
Random! And drive back to Weeder Hall.
Whoa, that's crazy.
What happened?
It just disappeared.
Yeah, we're
And when you stop, it turns
Now
on.
that I stopped, it's on. And now that I go, it's off. Whoa, that's so cool. But on these screens, you have some customization, which is nice. I mean, this is the new Audi MMI. Like I said, they're state-of-the-art, newest technology. It is, like I said, absolutely gorgeous. And some controls over here, you can sort of change what the view looks like, and then change what is on either side, which is nice. Very clicky buttons. They don't actually bother me too much. But it's not super customizable, but I guess you just live with it. You're very used to your car. That's fine. These dots indicate when the Hey Audi assistant is operational, which I'm surprised it didn't just hear me say that, but maybe it's not listening too hard right now. And then you have this little shortcut of icons, which is nice, but Logan noted it is actually kind of blocked by the steering wheel in most cases. So you do have to kind of like look over and see it, kind of like the climate menu in the EV9. But you can swipe over at any time to access this little shortcut thing, and also access the, I guess, hotkey menu or whatever, which is where you can access a bunch of quick things, including brightness, which controls all screens together, and even ambient lighting. No, I think just the screens. Yeah, that makes sense. But a lot of different options in here. I'm not going to go too deep into everything. We are tight on time. Had a lot of driving today. But yeah, there's YouTube. There's this racing game. Different games and things. There's themes you can download, which is, I don't know, kind of cool, I guess. It's all running off of Google's actual software, like a Google-based software, which is kind of cool. So that means there's the App Store that you can download different apps on. I didn't see anything about Apple Music. That disappoints me as an Apple Music enthusiast, but CarPlay helps with that. And the sound system itself, pretty good. Bang & Olufsen. 20 speakers if you opt for the headrest speakers, which I think are pretty cool purely for the fact of having navigation in your driver's headrest. But I actually think the headrest speakers themselves are really poor quality. So you'd be fine with a 16 speaker Bang & Olufsen if that's possible. There's also a cheaper, just basic Audi system. The base E-Tron, or I guess Q6 E-Tron, has just normal headlights up here. Opting for, I guess, is it Prestige? The highest trim is what gives you the actual OLED lights. And you have 8 different customizable options. So I guess we'll go through those really quick. That's 1, 2, looks like this. And the way it's lighting up is actually cool because that's like the welcome signature of the car itself. And I actually love this. I think it's really cool to have this level of customization. And even the rear lights notably they can control the brightness of the lights as well. So you can have kind of a 3D effect if you care for that. 7 and then 8.
But only SQ8 has the adjustable taillights with the OLED taillights.
Yeah, which is also weird. I wish you could just get that on Q6 E-Tron instead of just SQ6. But yeah, the pricing structure is very interesting. All the different features. For example, USB-C ports on every Q6, obviously, but you have to get the Premium Plus trim to get actual high power USB-C ports. That gives you 60 watts front, 100 watts rear, which is pretty cool for rear passengers who might want to run a computer off of it. But if you just get the normal Premium, which again, I hate that it's called Premium, and then it's only 15 watts USB-C. You do have a actively cooled wireless charging tray for your phone. That is proper. I did use it and my phone did not overheat, which is amazing. That's the only way to do it, and I'm glad to see Audi handling that. And I took some notes on additional trim things because to get lane centering, you have to get Premium Plus, which I also think is crazy. And then the glass roof, heads-up display, heated second row and steering wheel. That's also all standard on base model Tesla, just gonna point that out. Bang & Olufsen sound system, it actually is a pretty good sound system. We pumped it.
Yeah.
There's a sub in the sub trunk, which is, I guess that's why you call it a sub trunk in this case. And that's nice. I definitely recommend cranking the bass. The subwoofer, sorry, not the bass. Cranking the subwoofer because the sub is so far back there. And then having the bass, I don't know, somewhere a bit boosted does sound nice in this car. And it is cool that having the passenger display, which you do have to get Prestige trim to get that, but that allows your co-pilot to essentially be your DJ your mixing person and get it really dialed in nicely. And we did try to get it dialed in pretty well. Yeah, just having everything boosted a little bit. And 3D effect, turn that shit off. Or low. Low also is okay depending on the song, depending on the genre. And then surround sound, also turn that off because the headrest speakers are not high quality whatsoever. You can also get the convenience package for $1,900. That gives lane centering. So you could get the base model premium and then add convenience package, which gives lane centering, heated steering wheel, second row, and surround camera. Surround camera is really nice to have, but like I said, these notes should have been standard. And the sunroof, you can pay $1,450 and get it if it doesn't come with whatever trim you're opting for. And then Prestige gives you air suspension, the acoustic laminated front glass, which does help with road noise and VH, etc., the passenger display, and all the DRL lighting signatures. That's a lot of features. We also tried the Hey Audi, I don't want to set it off, natural language processing assistant thing. A lot of cars have virtual assistants, and a lot of them are very annoying because they require a very precise way of saying something. This one touts natural language processing, which means you don't actually have to say something exact. You could say, my butt's cold, and it'll be like, oh, I'll turn your seat heater on. And it also knows who's talking, so it'll turn yours on or mine. By the way, Audi does it properly. You can do seat heating and ventilation at the same time, but not in this one because we're in the SQ6 and this particular one does not have ventilated seats, but it does have massage. It's so confusing. I would just get an SQ6 with ventilated seats. Ventilated seats, way more important to me than massage.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Very effective too. The Q6s were killer. Really good job.
Amazing ventilated
As someone
seats.
with perpetual swamp ass, it was
10 out of 10 recommend. And yeah, but the assistant works really quite well. It has offline and online capabilities, and it's very, very reactive. So looking forward to testing more of this. Like, it is really hard to squeeze everything into one day, and they also pair journalists up, so it's like our time's almost divided in half.
And we had 2 cars to switch through.
We had to swap through 2 cars and a lot of driving and obviously very inclement weather. But hey, we still squeezed something in. We still got some impressions in, and I definitely came away more aware of what Q6 and SQ6 really is. Okay, it is still raining, literally rain all day, which I'm not too upset about as someone who lives in Colorado where it's perpetually dry pretty much all the time. But that wraps up my day with the Q6 and SQ6 E-Tron SUV. I'm curious what you guys think of this thing, the PPE platform in general, how this compares versus Macan. Are any of you actually cross-shopping? Because a lot of people asked in comments and on Twitter, like, this versus Macan, but I feel like the Macan is just another league of price above this, and I don't really feel like they're necessarily meant to be cross-shopped. It is just a shared platform, but we'll see PPE on other things as well. Of course, we'll have the A6 Avant, which I don't think comes in the US, which is really disappointing. But here in the US, we do have the Q6, the SQ6, and also the Q6 Quattro. Yeah, a lot of Q6 happening, and future Sportback Q6 models, which you should just avoid because Sportback SUVs are silly. Although technically the electric variant of a Sportback would make that a little bit more efficient. By the way, coefficient of drag on this thing, like 0.3 something, that's really not great. We have like Model X and Model Y far surpassing that, but it's still enough range and usability for a lot of people. Like I said, it's not super impressive packaging, not crazy impressive interior space, but still enough for most people. Not amazing range, but still enough for most people. And the good charging does account and make up for a lot of that. So, excited to do more testing with this. What's crazy is we had a Q6 at the dealership next to us in Fort Collins, and Audi would not let us drive it or film with it, which is crazy because you as a viewer can just go drive it and film with it and do whatever you want, but there's this press drive and all the journalists had to agree to the same embargo, so all the content comes out at the same time, and it just really interesting launch of this product. Everything PPE was already delayed so much because of software backlogs, and it's a lot. So I'm going to get out of this rain and get back to the hotel, get a good night's sleep, and head back home. Meanwhile,
in here.
Sir, that's clearly your car.
Wrong. Come on.
See, that's what the passenger screen is supposed to be used for. Just watching YouTube all day.